Do you want to hear something insane? I have 20 years of fitness lessons summarized in 20 minutes, or hopefully less than 20 minutes. If I go a little bit over, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. But welcome back to Pack Mentality. If you don't know me, I'm Matt Benwert. I own Red Wolf CrossFit in Huntington Beach, California with my wife, Caitlin. And we started this podcast with one goal in mind, and that was to make fitness education accessible, engaging, and effective for everyone. If you really want to shortcut the next 10 years of trial and error in your fitness, these 8 lessons are going to be your cheat sheet. I'm going to be fully transparent with you. These are simple, boring, but they're effective and they work. And if you skip these, you're going to waste years. And if you apply them, then you'll never have to go back. So real quick background on me. If you don't know, that I've been coaching for the last 17 years, going on 18 years. I've owned a CrossFit gym in Huntington Beach for the last 13 years. I've coached thousands of clients and I've seen a lot. I haven't seen it all, but I've definitely seen a lot. And these are lessons learned from real world experience, not just theory. These are things that I've learned mostly myself, but that I also see the same mistakes that other people make as well. So I'm here to save you a lot of time because it took me years. And I see people bypass all those years all the time as long as they just apply the lessons that I've messed up on very early on. So, and these are backed by results. We have a lot of data to back this up. So we do in-body scans for all of our clients that we work with. So we have a lot of data to back that up, along with numbers from when people log their workouts as well. So everything from fat loss, strength gains, and longevity improvements are going to be the key points here. So, and by the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly where most people go wrong and how to avoid it. And each point is a tool where you can start using today, and there's really no complicated plan needed. So without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? So, number one, we got 8 of these that we're going to get through. So number 1 is train on the boring days. That's when it matters the most. This is probably one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn, and this is one of the hardest things to communicate to a client when you're working with them. Is there going to be days where you really don't want to work out, or even if you do want to work out, you're going to have to do some boring crap, and it's not going to be fun. Like, you're going to do some stuff that's not really intense. You're going to do skill work that you keep failing over and over with. There's going to be times where there's a lot of rest times in between sets because we're working on quality of movement or a strength piece. And the issue is that as CrossFitters, and I'm a CrossFitter too, is that we like to go hard all the time, and we like to go balls out, and we like to be aggressive with everything with very minimal rest. And it's something that we actually have to kind of take a step back on and remember that there are days where you're going to have to slow down and do things well before you can do them fast. And those days compound into the biggest wins. I can't tell you how many times where I've implemented a exercise or a movement into a conditioning piece, and I just flopped it every time. For a good example of this for me is handstand walks. I used to try and handstand walk all the time in a workout when I would just fall over all the time. And it wasn't until I started isolating my problem, which was just simply focusing on my weight shift. So I'd kick up on the wall, work on my weight shift side to side. And then from there, I was able to apply that into a work, or I was able to get 10 feet unbroken and then 20 feet unbroken. And we're talking with full recoveries, like 1 to 2 minutes rest in between, just making sure that I did it perfectly every time. And then in a very short time span, I was able to implement that into a traditional conditioning piece. So train on the boring days, that's when it matters most. Number 2, protein solves 90% of your nutrition problems. That stop obsessing over supplements or fads and aim for protein with every meal and watch everything else fall into place. Now, if you're going for performance, that there are some other tweaks that you need to have. I'm not saying there's always 20% of people out there who don't need as much or don't need copious amounts of protein, as they say. Especially if you're training multiple times a day. But for the most part, I see your regular people coming in looking to lose weight or gain muscle. They're severely under eating on protein, and they're also eating a lot of the wrong stuff, or they're binge eating at night. And so one of the things that you can counteract this with is just increasing your protein intake. So I recommend about 1 gram per pound of body weight. So I'm 200 pounds. So I eat 200 grams of protein, and I try and get 100 grams in before noon. So that way I'm not backtracking beyond that. And even if I don't hit my protein target, the chances of me hitting 150, 175 protein is actually very high that I eat that afternoon. And so I don't have as much to worry about in terms of recovery. And also I stay full longer by eating a higher protein diet. And also get adequate, like I said, I get adequate muscle repair from consuming enough protein. So just watch everything fall into place when you increase your protein intake. Again, there's always exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, protein will solve 90% of your problems. Number 3, sleep isn't recovery, it's performance prep. So treat sleep like training, set a schedule, protect it, and track it. Now, I know you're listening to this and you're like, Matt, I'm busy. I got kids, I got a job. I need some me time. Well, yeah, I hear you. And it's a tough pill to swallow, but sleep really is the most anabolic thing you can do. And anabolic meaning that you're gonna get the most strength gains from that. You're gonna repair yourself from training. And a lot of times what I see is when people break down or they don't have the motivation, they're just not doing things or they're just not feeling it, is that their sleep is crap and they're staying up late, they're watching TV, they're on their phone scrolling until midnight, and then they're up at going to the 5 a.m. class. Like, it's just not going to work over a long enough timeline. So you have to remember that the sleep is something that you're going to have to prioritize. And really, if you can get at least 2 or 3 hours before midnight, that's actually ideal. Now, I know you're going to look at me and be like, I can't go to bed at 9. Well, you know what? You don't have to, but just try and go to bed as early as you can before midnight. That is really the single greatest hack that you can have, is seriously getting enough sleep, because it's going to help your cognitive function. It's going to help you prepare your muscle tissues so that way you can train harder and longer. You're going to be in a better mood, and you're also going to make much better food choices, because, as you get tired, it's really difficult to make good decisions when you're tired. I mean, when was the last time you were just completely exhausted and you made a lot of really good decisions, or you're like, I really want to make some really big decisions today? Probably not. So you probably make the best decisions, you feel your best, and you also probably function the best when you get enough sleep. So I know it's groundbreaking, right? But do it. Number 4, your water bottle is a productivity tool, not just hydration. So hydration drives energy, focus, and training output. And the main issue that I had with hydration was that I like to drink things other than water, particularly energy drinks or sugary drinks. When I was a little bit younger, I didn't drink enough water. And so, obviously when you drink a sugary drink, it spikes your insulin, and then you crash, and then you feel like crap, and then your brain doesn't function as well. So it's just a huge rolling snowball downhill for not only bad health, but just bad cognitive function. And when you really focus on, having a water bottle with you, and I have several water bottles that I keep around just to remind myself to drink more water, is that when you keep it visible and you keep it full, that you're more likely to drink that. You're more likely to go for that just out of pure convenience and as anything else. So I highly recommend getting some sort of a fancy or nice refillable water bottle that keeps your water cold. I also found that when you keep your water extremely cold, that when you drink it, it's very refreshing, and then you're more likely to drink more without adding a ton of extra flavoring. Now, if you're struggling to drink water and you like to have flavored drinks, and I'm one of those people, I love flavored drinks. I grew up on soda, like Surge and Coca-Cola and all that stuff that I probably shouldn't have been drinking at that young of age, but I was able to kick that habit very slowly by switching over to diet drinks. And then after I switched over to diet drinks, I switched over to Mio, which is like this, I'm sure you've all heard of it, but for those of you who haven't, it's just like the little squirt bottle that you put into your water, and then flavors the water for you. And I gradually kind of weaned myself off of that. I still have flavored drinks here and there, but for the most part, I try and drink water as much as I can, and also try and keep any kind of sugary stuff out of your coffee as well. I know that a lot of people like the fancy foo-foo bougie coffees from Starbucks or whatever your weapon of choice is, but do me a favor and take your coffee bowl blacker than usual. Okay. So your water bottle is a productivity tool, not just hydration. Staying hydrated does multiple things for you. It's going to keep your joints lubricated. Obviously you'll stay hydrated because of this. And you're going to have better cooling for your systems as well, especially during hot times like it is now, at least at the recording of this podcast. Number 5 is that strength training is free therapy with better ROI. Okay. It creates mental resilience, stress relief. You're going to build confidence and plus muscle. Now, I can definitely talk about this because, not in terms of therapy, but in terms of strength training, because I took a significant amount of time off from doing dedicated lifting. I would still do the classes and do the Metcon, so I would still lift with whatever the class was. But now that I'm in training mode for Wadapalooza, been adding in a lot more lifting, a lot more conditioning, and I will definitely say I feel a lot better with the amount of lifting I'm doing. I don't know what it is psychologically, but I definitely feel like I'm more confident. I feel more resilient. My stress levels are a lot lower. My confidence has gone back up. So I spent the better part of 2 years taking a little bit easy just because I tweaked my knee. Nothing bad. There was nothing injured. I wasn't injured, but I just decided it was kind of a warning shot across the bow to kind of just back off a little bit and take some time off. And not time off from CrossFit specifically, but more just time off from like high volume training, always doing like lifting, a traditional CrossFit piece like in class, and then also doing another extra conditioning piece or accessory work within the same day. So I decided, I'm just going to focus on just the classes. I'll still work out 5 to 6 times a week, maybe sometimes 7 times a week, but I'm not going to do anything extra. And I did that for 2 years and it still felt great. But when I added in a little bit extra lifting, that's when I started feeling a lot better. And I think it's just because my testosterone went up a little bit more from doing just a little bit extra lifts. And I used to lift all the time before the conditioning piece. And so getting back into that was really nice, but it was also nice to back off a little bit. It was really nice to kind of take some time. I've been doing CrossFit now since 2007 and I've been going hard since then. So being 2023, 2024, where I took it a little bit easier, my body kind of enjoyed that. And then now I kind of went back to go forward. So as the pendulum swing back, now it's swinging back forward. And now I can focus on getting back to my normal self, which I have in a very short amount of time. And that's something that's kind of an off-topic thing, but once you realize that, or once you have a huge foundation of strength and fitness, is that you can afford to have times where you back off a little bit, not in terms of frequency, but in terms of the amount of volume you're doing, or maybe even in terms of the intensity. And then when you come back to it, you actually get it back very quickly, surprisingly. And I was surprised by how fast my fitness was able to come back. So strength training, definitely, I wouldn't say it's better than therapy, but it's free therapy, and the ROI is better because it doesn't cost nearly as much as a therapist. So highly recommend, 10 out of 10, please do it. Number 6, track actions, not outcomes, follow behavior. This is something that I learned recently, and this is something I try and coach as much as I can, but I think a lot of times is that we get really worked up, and I know I get worked up over just getting to that finish line. Like we see it and we're like, we have that goal, we want we want a particular outcome, and the issue is that we focus so much on the outcome that sometimes the outcome is either too high of a goal or it's too so far away that sometimes it psychs itself out, and then we forget that the whole process and the behaviors that we're developing and the person we're becoming is actually, that is what the goal is. And so you want to track actions and not outcomes, and you want to log workouts, you want to log your meals if you can. Track your habits and not just your weight or your PRs. And I think a lot of times we do get attached to the end result, but we forget that a lot of times that we're increasing our minimum output when we're doing these things. For example, and this is one of the best coaching pieces of advice I ever got from my coach, was like, because I had a rough day doing some testing. So I was maxing out, missed some lifts, was feeling good leading up to it, but I just could not, for some reason, get like 5 pounds over a PR, and I think like a snatch. And then I was like, man, like I felt like crap. And so I talked to my coach about it, and he was like, you know what, Matt, at the end of the day, we're not focused so much on increasing your PRs or your maximum output. We're working on increasing your minimum. So what did you hit today multiple times that you haven't hit in the past? I was like, well, I hit 225 a few times and I felt really good. It was probably the easiest 225 I ever hit. And he's like, that's the goal. That is the goal right there, because when you can hit your minimum and your minimum feels easy, then your maximum doesn't really matter because you've gotten better. Because, 4 weeks ago, and he really put me in place. He was like, 4 weeks ago, 225 was a struggle. Even though you hit probably a little bit higher than that afterwards, like that 225 was pretty sketch. And I was like, you're right. And so being 4 weeks later, being able to hit 225 on a snatch with no issues, like walking up to the bar and like knowing I could do it, is a huge confidence boost. And we often forget that. We often forget that there are lifts, or there are other things that we do that are now easy that we take for granted because we forget, because we're just looking forward to the next goal. And so it's really important to track your actions, not your outcomes. Results follow your behavior. Number 7, the scale is a lagging indicator because consistency is the leading one. So your weight just reflects your past habits, not today's effort. And I see this a lot with new people, especially if they're struggling to lose weight, is that they get so attached to the scale or they get so attached to numbers on the body composition. But I always reel them back in and say, well, how's your energy though? Like, yeah, maybe the in body results aren't what you wanted, but how do you feel on your day to? And they're like, oh wow, I have way more energy. I can hike with my kids. I can play with my kids at the playground without sitting down anymore. I'm not on my phone as much. I'm sleeping better. My sex is better with my wife. Brown chicken wow wow. This is not, I guess this is a family friendly podcast. And anyways, so when you get into this, now I'm distracted. When you get into this and realize that there are so many other intangibles that you have to track and measure, just kind of like the same point from number 6, which is track outcomes, track actions, not outcomes, is that there's other things that you can benefit from exercise alone, not just your PRs, not just your body fat mass, not just your skeletal muscle mass. There are other stats that are a lot harder to measure, but do increase your quality of life. And a lot of that is things that how you feel outside the gym and how you handle stress. And this one took me a long time to learn as well, because I'm such a data driven person and I'm always trying to improve, but I always forget that, hey, like, me being now 37 and feeling how good I do feel, and the fact that I can still do a lot of the things that I still did in my mid and early 20s makes me very happy. Like before the recording of this podcast, I put up a 400-pound back squat for a single, which I haven't done in a very long time. I think the last time I did that was probably 3-4 years ago. And now being older, and that was, probably when I was 30, my early 30s, and now in my late 30s, I'm like, wow, I can still do a lot of that. And I put that pretty easily. So, as I maintain my fitness, it's really cool to see that I'm still really enjoying it, and that I'm getting a ton of returns on it on the outside, because I still feel physically, I still feel like I'm in my early 30s slash like late 20s. Like, I'm not as fit as I am, just because of my focus is on the business, my focus is on my family, so I don't train as much as I did back then. However, in terms of how I feel and how proud I am that I'm still able to accomplish a lot of these things that I didn't think I'd be able to do as I got a little older, I'm extremely proud of that and very happy with that. And finally, we're moving on to the last one, which is number 8, which is community is your cheat code. Surround yourself with people who live it. So your environment shapes your behavior. So you need to really choose wisely here, because I've been in poor environments. So for example, I was part of my first gym that I ever worked at, which will remain nameless. They are closed now anyways, but I'm still going to keep it nameless. Not a bad gym, but it was definitely a very watered down version of CrossFit, which I did not like. And the reason why is because they babied people way too much, like telling people to go way too light. Like, I'm like, dude, we're not going to get anyone fitter by not pushing them a little bit. Like, you have to be a little bit out of your comfort zone. Like, if you're not making funny faces when you're doing your workout or your lifts, you're probably not trying hard enough. And then on the contrast of that, the next gym I was at, where I was general manager right before I opened my gym, Red Wolf, it was way too bro-y and intense. Like, a ton of dudes. Like, imagine like your classic like frat boy energy dudes, shirts off, and just blasting just music so loud that you can't hear each other, and just everyone just yelling at each other, and also making derogatory terms. Definitely not the most family friendly environment. Was it kind of cool when I first started? Absolutely, because the energy was off the hook. But then as you kind of get into it, you realize, well, this turns off like 99% of the rest of the population. So how can we help them without being a bunch of frat boys? Yeah, I was part of that. But community is, and then that's when I started Red Wolf, because I wanted to create something that was a healthy balance of both. I wanted a family-friendly environment to where, just your average person, or like a mom or a dad, or people who just wanted to get fit, move around, and have a good time doing it, and hang out with some really good people, would still benefit from that. And then the people who did want to be a little more competitive and have, do the Wadapaloozas and do the semifinals and do the CrossFit Games Open, can still have that there, but still maintain what we've built in terms of still embracing everyone regardless of what your goals or your fitness level is. And I think that's really important. And I think we've been very successful at that, because There's so many people here who do like the competitive end of the spectrum of CrossFit, who are very good friends with people who don't even know, can't even name a single CrossFit Games athlete. And I think that's really cool that we cultivated a culture like that, because it doesn't matter who you are and what your goals are, is that you're welcome here, and as long as you put in the work and you work hard and you're not a dick, that you're gonna have a good time and you're gonna get really fit doing that. So, closing on the 20-minute mark here. So picture this. So, looking back in 10 years, knowing that you actually stayed the course without quitting every 3 months, and then imagine that your friends and family seeing the difference and asking, well, what is your secret? And it's these habits. There are no magic pills. There is no shortcuts, unfortunately. Believe me, I've tried to find them. And so just remember that these 8 habits are going to get you a lot further. And these are things that I learned way too late in my CrossFit journey. So I hope that these help you a lot. So if you keep chasing trends, and you're going to waste years and you're gonna be wondering why you're still stuck. So please take my advice. And you and I challenge you to pick one of these lessons and apply it this week, and then stack others over time very slowly. You're gonna be very tempted to get right into this and do all 8 right away, but just do one at a time. It's just keep it simple, keep it boring, keep it effective, and repeat. Thank you so much for listening, and nailed it.